In late February to early March, the dry season in the Philippines brings calm seas, clear skies, and perfect diving conditions. The waters are still, the sunlight cuts deep, and visibility is near perfect, ideal for seasoned divers. Viktor Volkov, 57, a veteran diver with decades of experience, was back in familiar territory with his two sons Pavel, 18, and Dmitry, 29, and his longtime friend Sergei Morozov, 39. Viktor had introduced all three to diving and guided them through countless dives over the years. Pavel took to it early, starting at 15, while Dmitry and Sergei had become highly skilled in their own right. Over 2 weeks, the group explored the vibrant reefs and drop-offs surrounding Verde Island, one of the Philippines' premier dive spots. Their journey was set to end with something more challenging, a cave dive, remote, technical, and thrilling. It was the kind of dive that demanded trust, skill, and absolute focus. The dive went perfectly. The group moved in sync through warm, clear water, surrounded by a kaleidoscope of coral bright reds, soft purples, neon greens. Schools of small, shimmering fish darted around them, weaving through the reef like living currents. A few reef sharks appeared in the distance, sleek and indifferent, posing no threat. The divers kept calm, steady, taking in the sight with quiet awe. Near a cluster of rocks, a curious octopus emerged, changing colors as it moved. It hovered for a moment, studying the intruders with shifting eyes before gliding away into the coral. Every detail of the dive felt right, safe, beautiful, and alive with motion. For Viktor and his group, it was one of those rare dives where everything aligned. Visibility was sharp, the current mild, and marine life abundant. It was a reminder of why they kept coming back to these waters year after year. Above the surface, the wind had picked up slightly, nothing alarming, but enough to notice. Below, however, the situation had changed. A strong current had begun to sweep through the dive site, unexpected and out of sync with the calm forecast. It wasn't violent, but it was steady and growing stronger. The divers felt the pull as they adjusted their position, keeping close to the reef for shelter. The dive master, reading the signs and sensing the risk, made a quick decision. He signaled the group to shorten the dive and prepare to ascend early. Fighting the current too long could drain their energy, especially before a planned cave dive. Everyone acknowledged the signal and began a slow, controlled return. It wasn't panic, just professionalism. In diving, reading the water is as critical as reading the gauges. And today, the water was telling them something had shifted. As the group began their ascent, staying close and steady, everything still seemed under control. But halfway to the surface, without warning, a sudden surge hit from the side, a powerful underwater current that came fast and hard. Dmitry and Sergei were caught directly in its path. In an instant, both were pulled away from the group. The force of the current was so strong it tore Dmitry's mask off and ripped the regulator, the mouthpiece connected to his air tank, out of Sergei's mouth. Visibility dropped as sand and bubbles exploded around them. Viktor turned and saw the chaos unfold. Dmitry was struggling, trying to grab his mask while spinning in the flow. Sergei reached for his regulator, but the current shoved him further off course. They were both drifting fast away from the reef and into open water. Pavel and the dive master moved quickly, signaling each other and preparing to assist. But in conditions like this, even experienced divers had to act with caution. Splitting up could mean more people in trouble. The priority was clear: regroup, stay calm, and get everyone out safely. The ocean had shifted in seconds. What began as a routine dive had turned into an emergency. And underwater, every second counts. The dive master reacted immediately. Seeing Dmitry and Sergei swept away, he made a split-second decision. Instead of chasing them into the current, a move that could put more lives at risk, he grabbed Viktor and Pavel and anchored them to the reef. Using his own body and gear to increase weight and stability, he formed a tight, grounded cluster with the two divers. The current tugged at them, but the position held. He gave sharp, clear hand signals: stay low, hold. Unprepared to ascend slowly. Viktor, shaken but alert, kept close to his son, while Pavel stayed focused, eyes scanning for any sign of Dmitry or Sergei through the swirling water. but the current showed no signs of easing and visibility remained poor. Once he judged it safe enough, the dive master initiated the ascent, guiding Viktor and Pavel upward in a controlled slow rise. He kept them close, checking frequently to ensure they were breathing steadily and not panicking. At the surface, they broke through into wind and chop, but they were safe. The dive master got them to the boat, signaled for emergency support, and immediately began preparing a plan to locate the missing divers. Every diver knows that nature is unpredictable. Training, quick thinking, and teamwork had saved 3 lives, but 2 were still missing and time was running. 2 hours after the incident, a local fishing boat spotted a diver floating 2 miles from the original dive site. It was Dimitri. He was unresponsive, but still had a pulse. The crew pulled him aboard and immediately began CPR. For nearly 2 hours, medics tried to stabilize him after transferring him to the nearest medical facility. Despite all efforts, Dimitri never regained consciousness. He was pronounced dead later that evening, cause of death brain damage from prolonged lack of oxygen. Sergei never surfaced. Search teams combed the area by boat and helicopter, using sonar and dive teams to sweep the region. The next day, his body was discovered at depth, caught near a rock ledge. It was badly damaged. Officials confirmed multiple bite wounds consistent with shark activity, likely from scavenging after death. The extent of the damage made identification difficult, but dive gear and serial numbers matched. For Viktor and Pavel, the loss was overwhelming. Father and son had survived, but lost a son and a friend in the same dive. What had begun as a controlled, well-planned expedition had ended in tragedy, turned deadly by a sudden shift in ocean conditions. It was a harsh reminder of the risks that even experienced dive underwater currents can change in an instant. What starts as a calm, predictable dive can quickly turn dangerous without warning. Even the most accurate forecasts can't always account for sudden shifts in flow or pressure. That's why strict attention to the dive master's signals isn't just important, it's essential for survival. The dive master reads the conditions, makes split-second decisions, and coordinates safe exits when things go wrong. Ignoring or hesitating on a signal can cost precious seconds, especially when visibility drops or currents intensify. In unpredictable waters, trust and discipline make the difference between a close call and a fatal mistake. Every diver, no matter how experienced, must remember: the ocean doesn't wait and it doesn't forgive carelessness. Listening and reacting fast to commands can save your life and the lives of those diving with you. Kenji had just arrived in New Zealand to start his studies. Everything felt unfamiliar. The people, the culture, even the way the wind blew. Back home he was confident and comfortable, but here, with limited English and no friends, he felt out of place. School was overwhelming, and small tasks like asking a question in class or finding the right bus stop suddenly seemed huge. That's when he met Liam. Friendly, easygoing, and always smiling, Liam noticed Kenji struggling and stepped in without hesitation. He introduced Kenji to classmates, helped him with assignments, and even taught him slang that textbooks never covered. Thanks to Liam's support, Kenji slowly began to feel like he belonged. The story is about how a simple act of kindness can make a world of difference and how friendship can cross languages and borders. One evening, Kenji received a phone call from home. His grandfather in Kyoto, the person who had raised him like a second father, was critically ill. The news hit him hard. Far from home and already struggling to adjust, Kenji found himself overwhelmed with worry and guilt. He couldn't focus in class, barely slept, and often isolated himself. His mind was filled with memories of his grandfather, tea on cold mornings, quiet advice, and stories from the past. Kenji quickly made plans to return to Japan over the New Year break, hoping to see his grandfather one last time. But 2 weeks before his flight, the call came. His grandfather had passed away. The loss shattered him. He hadn't even had the chance to say goodbye. The sense of helplessness and regret left Kenji feeling lost. It was the lowest point he had faced since arriving in New Zealand, and it tested him in ways he never expected. Seeing how broken Kenji was after his grandfather's death, Liam decided to help in the best way he knew through nature. He invited Kenji on a weekend trip to Abel Tasman Bay, a place known for its clear waters and golden beaches. At first, Kenji hesitated. He wasn't in the mood for anything, but Liam gently insisted, and eventually Kenji agreed. They set up camp by the water and spent the days hiking, diving, and watching the waves crash against the rocks. Something about the ocean brought Kenji back to himself. It reminded him of his grandfather, who had taken him snorkeling as a child and taught him to love the sea. Each splash and sunset felt like a quiet tribute. For the first time in weeks, Kenji smiled not out of habit, but because he meant it. That trip didn't erase the pain, but it helped him start to breathe again. Liam hadn't just offered a getaway, he had offered healing. While snorkeling in a clear, shallow part of the bay, Kenji suddenly felt the water shift. Before he could react, a massive great white shark, nearly 5 meters long, lunged at him from below. Chaos followed. The shark clamped down on his right leg, dragging him beneath the surface. Pain exploded through his body, but instinct kicked in. Kenji fought back with everything he had, punching and prying at the shark's mouth with his bare hands. Blood clouded the water, but he didn't stop. Somehow, through sheer will and adrenaline, he managed to force the shark to release him. He surfaced, gasping, his legs shredded, but his mind locked on survival. Liam, who had been nearby, rushed to pull him onto a kayak and called for help. The rescue was fast, but the damage was done. Kenji's right leg was nearly destroyed. It was a horrifying moment. Yet what stood out most was his courage. Even in the face of death, he refused to give up. Just as Kenji thought he was safe, the shark came back for a second strike. It surged from below, jaws wide. But this time it clamped down on his fin, the plastic diving fin, on his foot, mistaking it for flesh. The water was red with blood from the first attack, and the shark's vision was blurred. That mistake saved Kenji's life. In that split second, he gathered what strength he had left and kicked hard, striking the shark in the head. The sudden blow startled it, and it backed off. Liam, who had been frantically paddling toward him, reached Kenji just in time. He grabbed him and pulled him onto the kayak, yelling for help as they rushed toward shore. Kenji was barely conscious, weak from blood loss, but alive. It was a narrow escape, seconds, and luck made the difference. That plastic fin, a kick, and a friend's quick action were the only things standing between him and death. On the shore, Liam didn't waste a second. He grabbed the tent cord from their gear and tied it tightly around Kenji's thigh, turning it into a makeshift tourniquet to stop the bleeding. Kenji was slipping in and out of consciousness, pale and shaking. Within minutes, a rescue helicopter arrived and airlifted him to a hospital in Wellington. The surgeons acted fast, but the damage was severe. Kenji's right leg couldn't be saved and had to be amputated below the knee. He also had deep gashes on his arms and back from the shark's teeth. The recovery was long and painful. Every movement hurt, and every mirror reminded him of what he had lost. But he was alive. Thanks to Liam's quick thinking and the rescue team's speed, Kenji had survived one of the deadliest predators on Earth. It wasn't just luck, it was grit, courage, and the bond of friendship that kept him going when everything else nearly stopped. Unknowingly, Kenji had been wearing a wrist-mounted camera during the dive. It captured everything: the attack, the struggle, the escape. After he stabilized in the hospital, the footage was posted online. Within hours, it went viral. People around the world watched in shock and awe as Kenji fought off a great white shark with nothing but his bare hands and sheer will. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in and strangers reached out wanting to help. A community fund was quickly set up to cover Kenji's medical bills, the cost of a high-quality prosthetic leg, and travel expenses, so he could return to Japan for emotional recovery with his family. Donations came in from dozens of countries. What started as a moment of horror turned into a wave of kindness. Kenji's story had become more than a survival tale. It was a symbol of resilience and proof that even in the darkest moments, the world still has compassion to give. During the hardest moments, Kenji found strength in something deeper than pain belief. He truly felt that his grandfather's spirit had protected him that day in the water, guiding him through the chaos. It wasn't just a comforting thought, it became his anchor. A year after the attack, Kenji was still in recovery, both physically and emotionally. He went through daily therapy, learned to walk with a prosthetic, and slowly returned to the water, first in pools, then in open sea training. Step by step, he relearned how to dive. It was painful and frustrating at times, but he never gave up. His dream hadn't changed. He still wanted to become a marine scientist, only now with a new purpose to study the ocean, not just with curiosity, but with respect and experience. Kenji wasn't trying to forget what happened. He was learning to grow from it. The sea had once nearly taken his life. Now he was determined to return stronger, smarter, and fearless. Kenji's story is a powerful reminder that even in the face of tragedy, hope and strength can rise. What began as a personal loss turned into a life-threatening encounter, yet through courage, friendship, and the kindness of strangers, Kenji survived and found new purpose. His belief that his grandfather's spirit protected him gave him the will to fight, heal, and keep moving forward. The attack could have ended everything, but instead it sparked a deeper determination. Kenji's journey shows that pain doesn't have to define us. It can shape us into something stronger. With support, resilience, and belief, we can overcome even the darkest moments. And sometimes, the sea that nearly takes us is the same place we return to with greater purpose, humility, and strength.